we wanted to give it another minute just to make quorum, but again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we have a really important presenter today from the Office of Cannabis Management, so we want to move along. Okay. So again, good morning, everyone. Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706. I'm just going to pause really quickly. Chris, are we recording?
Yep, we're all good
Okay,
on that front.
great.
Yeah.
Pursuant to Chapter 4, Section 85, and Chapter 69, Section 2706 of the New York City Charter, a joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board will take place virtually today, Thursday, June 22nd, starting at 10:07 via WebEx. I am going to begin with roll call. Again, happy Thursday, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I know the month of June is very hectic with all of the celebrations and graduation. So we really do appreciate your presence here this morning. I'm going to begin with the DMs and chairs of the community board. First up, CB1.
Arlene Parks, present, and good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. CB2. Is that someone from CB2? Okay. CB3.
Good morning, Etta Ritter, Acting Assistant District Manager, Community Board 3.
Good morning, Etta.
Good morning.
Community Board 4. Community Board 5.
Good morning, Deputy Borough President. This is Ken Brown, District Manager of Community Board 5. I don't see my name up on the screen.
I see your name up on the screen,
Oh, okay.
Ken.
Okay, so I'm here twice then. Sorry.
We would love to see your face if you want to come on.
No, I don't have a camera on the computer.
Oh, okay. Community Board 6. Community Board 7. Community Board 8.
Good morning, everyone. Laura Spalter, Chair, Community Board 8.
Good morning. Kiara Gannon, District Manager, Community Board 8.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Kiara.
Good morning.
CB9. CB10.
Good morning, Deputy Matt Cruz, CB10.
Good morning, Matt. CB11.
Harriet Lasky, Community Coordinator, Community Board 11.
Good morning.
Good morning.
CB12. Okay, great. Moving along to City Council members. First up, District 8, the Honorable Deputy Speaker, Diana Ayala. District 11, CM Dinowitz. District 12, CM Riley.
Good morning, Madam Deputy. Simone Jones, Chief of Staff for CM Riley.
Good morning, Simone. District 13, CM Velasquez.
Good morning. This is Steph, District 13 District Liaison.
Good morning, Steph. District 14, CM Sanchez. District 15, CM Feliz. District 16, CM Althea Stevens.
Morning all, Kate Connolly here from Councilmember Stevens' office.
Good morning, Kate. District 17, CM Salamanca. District 18, CM Amanda Farias.
Good morning, Randy Malman here representing District 18.
Good morning, Randy. Great, beautiful. If there are any city agency partners that are on this morning, please identify yourselves. I see NYCDP is on.
Good morning. This is Effie Artizzoni from DEP. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us,
This
Effie.
is Valerie Davis O'Neill, New York City Parks.
Thank you for joining us. Anyone else from the city? Okay, great. Again, thank you all so much for joining. Before we start our amazing, wonderful, exciting presentation from the New York State Office of Cannabis Management, I do want to take a moment to welcome to the virtual stage our new Director of Planning and Land Use so that he may introduce himself, Jutan Hortzman. The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Deputy Board President. So I just want to give you a quick introduction to myself. My name is Jatan Horstman. I think I actually know quite a few of you. I was with City Planning for 14 years. I was a liaison for committee boards 10, 7, 8, 6. So I've touched on a lot of parts of the Bronx, but even in the last couple of years when I was I went to every single committee board for all of the citywide text amendments that we're going through. So, between all of the elected officials that are here, as well as the committee boards, I think that, we've probably had some engagement over the last at least couple of years. So I'm happy to be in my new role as the Director of Planning and Development for the Bronx Borough President. We have an agenda, and I actually want to, reach out and meet all of you and, just start to have discussions about if some of the things that are most concerning or the things that are most important to you all. So, we'll be trying to set up some of those meetings over time. Might take a little bit longer as, I'm working through a couple of things, but hopefully reaching out to all of you and talking to you soon. So I'm going to turn it back over. And, thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jutan, and we're super excited to have him on our team. Jutan, if you can just drop your email and contact information in the chat so that folks are able to connect with you directly. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Any questions for Jutan? Don't mean to put you on the spot, but before we begin.
Yeah, please. And there's also, like I said, my email's there. You can reach out to me directly and I can follow up with it, any questions or discussion you have. So
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us this morning, Jutan. So moving right along, we have, as we mentioned earlier this morning, a very important presentation regarding the legalization of cannabis. Just really quickly, the Office of the Bronx Borough President has made some strides to make sure that our Bronx residents are informed of these law changes and new economic opportunities. Just this past Tuesday, our office held a successful Bronx Cannabis Forum at the Bronx Museum of the Arts. It was recorded and live streamed via BronxNet, so we are going to make sure that recording is available. We received a ton of amazing questions and feedback from the audience, from our Bronx residents. And just as a quick overview, our panelists included Senator Jamal Bailey, Bronx County Chair. We also had the chairperson, Tremaine Wright, in person from the Cannabis Control Board. Also Patricia Suber-Wilson, the Associate Commissioner for Prevention at New York State OASIS. Commissioner Kevin Kim from the Department of Small Business Services was also present, as well as Desmond Lewis, the co-founder of the Bronx Community Foundation. Cos Marte, who is a business owner and previously justice involved, as well as Eli Northup, an attorney at the Bronx Defender's Office. And so we had an amazing conversation. The chairperson was very honest and clear about the current regulations and future opportunities. And so with the intentions to continue to advise, OCM has been extremely committed to coming to the Bronx, presenting to the Bronx, and ensuring that the Bronx gets their fair share in what will look like an economic opportunity for our borough. And so with that said, we have Jason Salmon, the Deputy Director of Campaigns and Outreach, as well as Pascal Bernard, Deputy Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, again from the New York State Office of Cannabis Management. And so I will give the virtual floor over to them. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Deputy Borough President. My name is Pascal Bernard. I'm Deputy Director for Intergovernmental Affairs. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Office of Cannabis Management, our Chair, Tremaine Wright, and our Executive Director, Chris Alexander. We're going to go through some slides, and we just ask that you please hold your questions until we're finished with the slides, and then we'd be happy to answer whatever questions you may have. And we have a number of our colleagues here from the External Affairs Department, and so you're in very good hands. And I was at the event on Tuesday, so this is my second time, this week with the Bronx, so I'm feeling very happy about that. I live right across the bridge in Harlem, so, I'm Bronx adjacent.
Yes, yes, you are. Thank you so much. I didn't get a chance to see you, but excited that we're here again today.
Yes, we're gonna bring up the slides now, and then we'll start going through them.
I will start to share my screen. Hold on for a sec. Does everybody see that? Right. Pascal, take it away.
Jason, can you do it on the can you do the slideshow? Because this shows everything.
Hold on for a second.
It's right at the top.
Got it.
Yep.
There we go.
All right, perfect.
Take it away.
Can we go to the next slide, please? So as we all know, in March of 2021, cannabis was legalized here in the state of New York under the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act, and it allows anyone over 21 to engage in adult recreational use of cannabis. Currently, there are no legal authorized sales. Nobody has license to sell cannabis as of yet. However, we do have the medical cannabis, and so they are licensed and people are able to use medical cannabis. Additionally, individuals are able to grow up to 6 plants for their own personal use at home. Next slide, please. So the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, which we will refer to as MARTA, is really at the heart of it is public health. We want to make sure that New Yorkers are able to safely engage in adult recreational use and know that the product that they're using is safe. And so that is the heart of what the MRTA is. In addition, it is also about social justice. And so there are portions of the MRTA that really talk about the equity and specifically targeting communities that were heavily impacted by the war on drugs. It is also about public safety by decriminalizing. And it's also about economic development, because we know that this is a industry that, will be booming. When you look at what's happened in other states that have already legalized prior to New York, we see that. So there are 9 license types, and I'm gonna date myself a little bit. And as you can see, the license types are on your screen. A lot of people are really focused on the retail dispensary. And so for those of you who know the Brady Bunch, that's the Marsha Brady of licenses, right? But there are, as you can see, a number of other license types that people will be able to apply for under the MRTA. And it's really important that we have people applying and getting licenses in all these areas, because we need all of these licenses. I'm sorry about the noise in the background, that's trash collection. We need all these licenses to really have a healthy cannabis ecosystem. And so these are the different license types that New Yorkers will be able to apply for once the regulations are written and the application process opens up. Next slide, please. So again, adults over the age of 21 can possess, can buy and possess cannabis, up to 3 ounces of cannabis flowers, up to 24 grams of concentrated cannabis, and that could be oils, tinctures, edibles, vapes, and it can be consumed in private home or state licensed site consumption. And Cannabis is allowed. You can smoke cannabis wherever smoking is allowed. So if smoking is banned in a space, you cannot smoke cannabis. Last night we did a presentation. My colleague Phil and I did a presentation, and someone asked about that. So in a building, if it is a smoke-free building, cannabis cannot be consumed in that building. So currently, again, home cultivation is not legal in New York State. Medical cannabis patients are allowed to grow at home, and eventually New Yorkers who are 21 and older will be able to grow up to 6 plants for personal use. Next slide, please. So this, I know, is an issue because we've gotten some emails from council members in the Bronx about this. So what isn't legal? Gifting is not legal. And so what gifting is you go into a bodega and you purchase, I don't know, a t-shirt or a sticker, and then they gift you cannabis. That is not legal. The Office of Cannabis Management has been very clear about that. We've sent cease and desist letters to businesses once it comes to our attention that this is what they're doing. And we let them know that if they continue to do so, they will jeopardize getting a license. Additionally, the Clean Air Act also covers. So again, where smoking is not permitted, cannabis smoking is also not permitted. So OCM, we oversee the adult recreational use. Additionally, we oversee the medical use of the medical cannabis use industry and also hemp. Next slide, please. So the social equity, we're making sure that New York does the right thing. And I will say other states have not led with social equity. We in New York have, and when Jason takes over the rest of the presentation, you'll see what I'm talking about. And so we've already worked with New Yorkers across the state for record expungement. New York State put money in to make cannabis tax break back into communities, and also making sure that we support people and communities most impacted by cannabis prohibition in building businesses. I'm sorry, it's really loud. Thank you. So the revenues from the cannabis the revenues from cannabis sales really will be broken up into 3 different kind of categories. 40% will go towards education, 40% will go towards community grant reinvestment, and 20% will go towards drug treatment and public education. Next slide, please. So we do have what we're calling conditional licenses. And so at this point, I think, Jason, you take over.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal. And like Pascal mentioned, you know, the MRTA is the best bill, the most progressive bill that's been passed in the nation. So we have a framework that allows us to be socially equitable, that allows us to create a fair market and a successful one. So the first retail dispensaries that are going to be opened are coming through a program called CARD, Conditional Adult Use Retail Dispensaries. Now, I just want to emphasize that this is a very small program in comparison to the 9 other licenses that you were seeing that Pascal showed you, which will be opening up at the end of this year or the top of next year. And the great thing about the CARD program is we're really setting people up for success. We understand that across the nation, there's been barriers to entry of the cannabis industry. One is real estate. The next is capital, access to capital or using the capital you have. What we are doing with the card program is we're using a mix of state and private funding to really invest in the renting of the space, the building out of the space, implementing the proper HVAC systems. All of this is very costly, but this is something that we are supporting on the development of these new businesses. So you're basically getting a turnkey operation. Am I eligible for card? Okay, the card program is a mixture of a justice-involved person, which we're going to go into what that means in the next slide, and having business experience, right? Particularly 2 years of net profit. And you can actually have owned a business in the past, okay? As long as you can show that you're on the articles of incorporation and that you owned at least 10% of that business while it profited for 2 years, then you possibly can qualify for this program. Okay, what does it mean to be justice involved? So if there are any lawyers in the room, you know that a 220 is a marijuana related offense, and that's one of the people that could apply for this is someone who owns a business, 2 years in net profit, but was convicted for, say, carrying a small amount of marijuana on his or her person. The next person that means justice involved is actually if you were married to someone that was convicted of a related offense. Did your husband do time for cannabis? Did he get arrested for cannabis? Did your wife, did your partner? This also means justice involved. Another example is if a child or a dependent, you know, someone was a cannabis related offense. So let's say a business owner of a laundromat or a cafe, right? And they have 2 years of net profit, and their son has a marijuana conviction. That also falls within justice involved. Does it have to be a marijuana conviction? We receive this question a lot. Yes, we are trying to address the harms done by marijuana prohibition and the criminalization of cannabis. So it has to be directly related to cannabis. So you must have the cannabis conviction, especially to be eligible for card. This is just card. For the 9 other licenses, 50% of our licenses have to go to social equity applicants, and the other half don't. Convictions must be before the enactment date of the bill. So the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act was passed last year, 3/31, and the convictions must be before then. So anything after then will not count for card. Business ownership requirements. I just talked about a bakery. Seems like here's a bakery, right? So the justice involved person applying must have experience owning at least 10% of that business. I spoke about that before. Again, like I said before, you do not have to currently own the business. You could have owned it in the past, and you have to show at least 2 years of net profit. So we are trying to find individuals, businesses that have been impacted by the criminalization of cannabis, but also have shown that they can run a business properly, they can comply, they have tax returns, etc. We also have a sort of pathway for not-for-profits to be a part of CARD. We are still admittedly figuring some of this out, so we'll have a lot more information in the future. But this 501c3 entity will have to be justice involved. They're serving communities that have been impacted by the criminalization of cannabis. So how can eligible applicants prepare now? So basically, this is the cannabis industry, while being very distinct and unique and a new revenue stream for us, you know, it's like any other business. You got to have a business plan, get your LLC together, your articles of incorporation. If you had a business in the past and you need to go dig up some documents, you need to go on irs.gov and get your articles of incorporation, whatever have you. We suggest that you start doing that now, and that you also set up an account with the New York State Business Express. This is also more of gathering of those documents, especially if you're justice involved. We're going to need to see proof that you were justice involved. So one of the forms you will need is a certificate of disposition. We need to see the proof of residence at the time you were arrested. And again, business ownership experience. So again, CARD is a small program. It's going to be the first retail dispensaries opening up, but it's a very small program, right? So if you do not fit the criteria of CARD, there are many other entries into this industry through the 9 other licenses that we were speaking about and Pascal referenced before. Here are those licenses. And just to reiterate, you know, the Marsha Brady, that's funny, as Pascal referred to it, she's right. Everybody wants a retail dispensary, but you could actually be a cultivator, right? There are downstate and upstate cultivators, people that have a green thumb and want to grow. There's delivery, actually bringing cannabis products directly to your consumer. There's processors, distributors. There's also even a micro. So the good thing about the MRTA is we don't allow for vertical integration. And what that means is we don't allow you to have a cultivator license, a nursery license, a processor license, own the land, have the retail dispensary. And that's because we do not want big corporations to swallow this market, right? We want to enable small businesses, and we need to transition the legacy market, meaning the people that were involved and participating in the industry before legalization. We need to transition them to a legal framework. So one of the micro business, actually, if you see, is the only one that allows you to be a cultivator and involved in the retail space. Other opportunities in the cannabis industry. We speak about this a lot at OCM, and we really want to highlight this. There are ancillary industries. There's other ways to enter this industry without touching cannabis, without being involved in the processing or the growing or the selling of that product. If you are a bookkeeper, if you are an accountant, if you're a graphic designer, if you create websites, HVAC systems, there's a lot of other security companies. There's a lot of other businesses here that people can actually get involved that really are ancillary to directly the cannabis industry. Small business development. And this is a lot of the reasons we really want to speak to the community boards, not just getting the information out, educating people on the law, but we also know community boards have small businesses. They know the businesses in their area. They know the small businesses in the area. They know the businesses where maybe someone has been justice involved. We really need your help in identifying really great applicants for CARD. This is where we are today. So 3/31, the MRTA was signed into law. Card regulations, the program I'm speaking about now, they were proposed, they were drafted, they were proposed, and our comments were received. So this is where we are today, where that yellow arrow is. And hopefully, by the end of the year, which is what we're aiming for, we will have the conditional adult use retail dispensary license issued and opened. So, supporting the work of OCM in your community. Again, like I said, you know your businesses, you know your community members. I'm sure you even know some of the legacy folks you can refer to us, okay? We really need to identify justice-involved folks. We need to identify businesses that might qualify for card. And, you know, we need to educate the community on topics that they care about. Public health issues. I'm sure a lot of you have maybe seen billboards all over the state. I have. If I'm driving from upstate to downstate, I see billboards telling me not to drive while high. That's a part of our public health campaign. We also have in the subway, we have a lot of advertisements in the subway as well. If you want to stay in touch with us, other than having our emails, which we'll probably collect at the end of this, cannabis.ny.gov, sign up for the dates for OCM, and we will alert you to any of the virtual or in-person events that we hold. Same thing, just highlight the events at ocm.ny.gov. If you need us to come to the community, I just want to highlight we're 100 folks right now, right? So agencies usually take hundreds of folks to be a well-oiled machine. We're 100 folks, so we're trying to hit every place we can, but we can't get to every single event. So we apologize if you send us something and we're just understaffed at the moment and can't attend. Again, this is our public health education campaign. This is what I was speaking about before. Again, if you want to share your feedback on regulations, this is the email, regulations@ocm.ny.gov. And if you are concerned about illicit sales, and Pascal touched on this as well, if your bodega or local convenience store is selling cannabis, we did not sanction that at all, okay? And in fact, it not only is not safe, right? Because it's not tested by a lab, you don't know what you're smoking, but also it's gonna hurt our collective business here, this new revenue stream we're generating. And it's gonna hurt in particular legacy folks, people that put food on their table now from this business because there are $35 or $30 eighths going at the bodega near your home. Okay, so that is the end of the presentation. I am going to try and stop sharing this.
Great. Thank you so much, OCM, Jason, Pascal. Thank you for that very thorough and detailed presentation. We'll open it up to questions now, so feel free to use the raise hand feature. And once called upon, please feel free to unmute.
And just as a reminder on the WebEx front, I don't see anybody who is connected only by telephone, but just in case I'm missing you, *9 can be pressed to raise your hand there. I do see Arlene Parks has raised her hand in WebEx. So Arlene, go ahead and unmute.
Before Arlene speaks, I just want to acknowledge that George Torres has joined our call. He's from Community Board 12. Thank you, George.
Great. Madam Chair, feel free to unmute. You're muted. We still cannot hear you.
Arlene, in WebEx, just click that little arrow next to the microphone icon, and under microphone, just move. Oh, thought I heard something there.
She is unmuted. I think it's just a matter of the speaker or the microphone that's being used.
As we're waiting
we
for
go.
her
Her
to,
volume may be down. I'm sorry to interrupt. Her volume may be down. That happened to me once.
Yeah, Arlene, I would just click that little arrow next to the mute button and under microphone, make sure that whichever mic you're using, whether it's a USB mic or your laptop, is selected there on WebEx.
as we're waiting for that, I just want to direct everybody to the chat. What I'm doing right now is just dropping links to different parts of the agency's website. So if you can just, at your leisure, look at it, it's more resources that you'll have and you'll be able to share with your communities.
All right, and Arlene, as someone else mentioned, it could be that the volume is down as well. So you click that little arrow, click audio settings.
She's working through it. In the meantime,
I thought I saw another hand go up.
I think Chair Spolter. Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My question involves which agency is in charge of enforcement. We are having a problem in Community Board 8. Merchants have contacted us and the police because there's a lot of selling of marijuana in the streets. The police, this gifting thing is going on where the police have said to us that it's not selling because they're not selling it. They're getting, donations of money for what they're doing. So this is something that's turning off customers. That's a problem. The merchants are complaining about what's going on in front of their stores. Second of all, we've gotten complaints about something that's like a food truck that has the big marijuana leaf on it, that's parked near Van Cortlandt Park right now for the past few weeks, that's selling marijuana. Now I'm hearing this morning and I'm understanding they're not licensed to do anything. Nobody's licensed. So, my question is, which agency is in charge of enforcement for what's going on illegally now with cannabis?
Pascal, do you want to address this issue or do you want me to tackle it?
Sure. So we have an enforcement department. Actually, before I start there, let me step back a little bit. So MRTA was passed in 2021. The agency, the Office of Cannabis Management, the agency is about 7 months old. So in addition to standing up an entire industry, we are also standing up a new government agency. And as you all know, since you're in government doesn't create new agencies that often. And so we're doing both. And, we like to say we're building the plane and flying it at the same time. And so we do have an enforcement division and we continue to staff up in that department. They are peace officers and will be going out to different businesses and really enforcing the MRTA. Additionally, we have sent out cease and desist letters to, I'm sorry, my sister's dog. We sent cease and desist letters out to these businesses, letting them know that there is no, as of now, adult recreational use sales, and that if they continue to engage in this illicit activity, they jeopardize getting a license. We have the OCM enforcement website email address where we ask people to send us information, and enforcement does look into it. They use investigatory measures to make sure that, the allegations are credible. And we're also in conversations with the city about what's happening with these illicit sales. And there are some council members' offices that some are on the call and some are not, weren't when we first started, that have reached out to us. So I do want to also point out that your elected officials are aware of this and they've reached out to us, and we're working on all of these pieces. So it's not a clean answer for you, and I recognize that, but these are the steps that we're taking.
Could you put in the chat the contact information, email, phone, whatever, in order to for us to identify to you where these problems are arising in our districts?
Yes. Phil, can you put the enforcement email address in here? Okay. Thank you. Oh, Jason did it. Okay, perfect.
I sent it to you privately. I'm just getting used to this.
I also want to just ask one last question. A number of smoke shops are cropping up in the district, and are these shops typically where licenses will be sought?
So I think there is no typical where licenses will be sought, because this is all new for us as a state. I'm sure that there are some smoke shops that will apply for a license, and there are going to be a slew of other New Yorkers and Bronxites that apply for licenses. So there, as of now, again, there are no licenses for sales. And so it's hard to say what a typical applicant is when we don't even have applications, licenses, or anything.
And the best thing for folks to do, if you do see a shop like that, if you see a smoke shop, if you know they're selling cannabis,
that's what we
do. Then please send that address, that business, etc., so that we can be aware of it. And we're working on the situation.
I see.
Thank you.
I see Chair Parks from CB1 put in a question in the chat. How is this being regulated so that these retail shops are not near schools or churches? Actually, your elected officials took care of that at the state level. It is in the MRTA. It is written in the MRTA that they cannot be within 500 feet of a school or house of worship. Additionally, and I think the heart of that question is also like, how do we protect our children? Additionally, it is in the regulations that the packaging cannot be attractive to children. So you can't package gummies in a Skittles package or anything of that sort. So yeah, again, the elected officials thought about these things and really try to address it in the actual legislation itself. Ms. Parks, we're friends today.
Yes, Chair Parks has a follow-up to that. What about street level sales that are fueling illegal sales on other narcotics?
What is, if we could just get some clarification on that, what exactly does that mean?
Sorry, your mic is still not working.
So what I guess when you're saying we have dealers selling marijuana on the streets and so on. Okay, so the MRTA really is strictly dealing with creating a regulated market for marijuana. Other narcotic sales are illegal. Nothing else is legal in the state. And so for sales of other narcotics, you should be calling law enforcement. That doesn't fall under jurisdiction of the Office of Cannabis Management.
Yeah, and I also want to flag that, we've been really drilled with a lot of misinformation about cannabis as time has gone on. And in fact, it's been treated it's treated now federally as a Schedule I drug, right? But we also know that the cannabis plant has many other properties, right? There's only one cannabinoid, THC, that actually gets you high. There's uses for hemp, right? We can get hemp from the cannabis plant. We have a very thriving medical program where people like my mother who've had like 2 knee replacements, right? But don't want to get opioids because they, opioids are really bad, right? So she takes medical cannabis to soothe her pain. So I would just, I think as we go along, we're going to be doing a lot of public education on the criminalization of cannabis and also just like what the plant is, so we can actually have people understand that there are also really great ways to use the plant that have nothing to do with getting high.
Thank you so much, Jason. Up next, George.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you share with us, you spoke earlier about enforcement. Can you share with us the numbers of complaints that you received and how many of those resulted in either violations or, whatever the enforcement action was? That's my first question. My second question is similar to Laura's question before. We have a vape shop in my neck of the woods on Woodlawn on Katona Avenue. A number of residents had made numerous complaints about this shop. Our enforcement agency, Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, I guess there was some sort of misunderstanding between the state legislation and the city's role in enforcing that legislation, because we had all the elected officials' offices involved in that area, which is Assemblymember Dinowitz. I know his office reached out to the state. The city's response was, we're still figuring it out. We're still figuring out the legislation. And you spoke a little bit to that, you're trying to fly the plane while you're building it. Is the city going to have a role in this sort of enforcement of it? Because you admittedly said that you only, excuse me, have only 100 people working at the agency. So I don't know how you can be, New York State is a rather large state, how you can be all over the state with 100 people enforcing these kind of these rules. So if you can speak to those two things, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I just want to, and before Pascal takes this, I want to say that, we're 100 people because we are a new agency, right? So we are like literally after this, I got to go through and look at a bunch of resumes. So like, it's not because we're not like planning on hiring. Trust me, we all want more staff. So I totally understand, but I'll pass it to Pascal for the enforcement end.
So as it relates to enforcement numbers, I don't have that information for you. I can tell you again that we do have an enforcement team. That team continues to grow. As Jason said, we continue to hire up across the agency. And so enforcement is doing a lot of hiring, and they are going after illicit sales once we get the information. I'm sorry, what was the other part of your question?
How are agencies like our Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, which licenses sales? Now, I know it's unrelated to cannabis sales, but these stores are doing multiple things, like the vape shops. They're selling cannabis vapes and other stuff like that. That was a complaint that we received, and we reached out to other agencies. But when I know the elected officials, both the council member and the assembly member, reached out to DCP, I always get the thing wrong, the former Consumer Affairs, when they reached out to them, they had responded that the legislation was still relatively new and that they were figuring out how to enforce the state rules on a local level. And you said earlier, you guys are going to be doing enforcement. So I'm just wondering, what role does the city play in interpretation of the rules that are laid out for the city? So, for example, the city can write a violation for unlicensed sales of, I would imagine that they can, or I don't know, maybe can you answer that? Can they write unlicensed sales violations for places that don't legally have a license to sell cannabis?
So the city can the city can enforce the law, and as of now, there are no legal sales of adult recreational use cannabis.
And George, I would say, like, let's just be in contact with each other. Like, love to have your information because the knowledge you bring, again, this is a new industry. I'm not going to say the plane analogy again because we all know it, but this is why we're here, right? Like if we hear from you and we're able to process that and then really work with other agencies and whatnot to really have fluid communication and how we're going to really enforce this, I think that that's the key, is us actually speaking. So, you know, we totally appreciate your concerns, and we're also understanding that we're still figuring it out ourselves, but we need your help.
And just to
Thank
add
you.
to that, during our cannabis forum, Commissioner Kim from the Department of Small Business Services was present, and he did admit that the mayor's office, alongside city agencies that are going to be involved, are creating a task force to do just that, to identify and outline each and every city agency's jurisdiction, and not just on the enforcement side, but who's in charge of education, who's in charge of business development and resources, things of that nature. So they are currently having those conversations. He did share that publicly, and so we should expect to hear more from the city on their cannabis task force.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we also, we meet with SBS regularly and share information with them. And so I do want to say that. And we have talked to other city agencies. We've not talked to Consumer Affairs. So Phil and I do intergovernmental affairs for municipalities. So if we can get a contact for the Consumer Affairs, the City Consumer Affairs Department, we would be happy to reach out to them and have engage them in this conversation.
We're happy to make that connection. Not a problem. Next up, we have Tom.
Good morning, everyone. My question has to go to community notification. When we get to the point where the retail sales become a part of this program, will OCM or will the applicant have to notify the local electeds as well as the local community boards of their intention to open a retail location within their district? And similarly to what excuse me, similarly to what SLA requires for liquor licenses, will there be an opportunity for the community board or electeds to comment on the potential locations before OCM would make the decision as to grant the license to a particular vendor?
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Much like you have, and I dealt with community boards when I worked in the Senate. That was a big part of my job. So just like there's a ULURP process, and you got to go through the certain steps to approve or to say, yes, we agree with this location. It will be going through the community boards. There's also within the MRTA, there is a description, which we are working on right now as how it's going to be implemented. There's a role for community boards to play. And we will be in direct contact with you. And that's exactly the reason why we were setting up these borough cabinet meetings and coming and doing these presentations, is because we're going to have to work with you. And we want you to approve of the locations that are in your communities and help identify locations in your communities as well.
I'd also like to say that, you know, that is one avenue to engage with OCM. And this isn't really directly related to the question that you just asked, but it's adjacent to it. We have public comment period for all the licenses that we plan to issue. That is also an opportunity for community boards to engage with the office. We have some of the best and brightest people working on our regulations, but you know, it could be that we don't have all the answers in the regulations. And so I would recommend, and you know, this is something that Phil and I do when we present in other spaces, is that you all look at it, look at the regulations, and provide us with your thoughts via the public comment period. Because if you send an email to us, it doesn't necessarily get memorialized in a way that all the drafters, the reg drafters will see. But if you do it through the public comment period, it certainly will. And so that is another avenue for your voices as leaders and community members to be heard.
Great. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Chair Laura.
I just want to follow up. I'm a little confused about how to comment. Would you send that information distribution to us? And will our precincts be able to comment? And, you know, should we hold a public hearing for the public to comment? I mean, we're already, it's kind of like the horse is out of the barn already. People are all over saying to us, to the police, well, it's legal. Well, it's legal. Nobody seems to know what you're telling us this morning. And it seems like it's going to be very, very difficult to have any kind of meaningful enforcement. So I wasn't aware about being able to comment. Maybe I've just missed that. Could you distribute that?
Yes, we can. And what we can do also is send a follow-up email to whomever here, to the chair, and just to actually give you the slideshow, you know, so we understand people learn differently. You can take the slideshow home and look at it. They're all of that information, all of the emails that we stated will be in that slideshow. So we're going to make sure that you have all the information you need to comment appropriately.
And I also just put the email for the regulations. It's regulations@ocm.ny.gov. And so that is where you can submit public comments. And then I also put in the link to that page on our website. So it's in the chat.
Just as a follow-up, do you anticipate fining people? In other words, sending this food truck a letter saying that they might not be able to be legal because of what they're doing now, he may not care because he's doing so well right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering about real enforcement if we're going to have respect for this. And I have issues, the way you've already stated, with the purity of whatever they're selling. They're not licensed. So
Right.
if you speak a moment.
Yeah, no, Laura, I think your concerns are super valid. They will be fined eventually. We have to take the proper steps within the agency to, you know, we sent out those cease and desist letters. Later on, there will be other enforcement tactics being taken, but we have to take the proper steps to alert people first before we start handing out fines.
I don't think the public is ever going to know what's in whatever they're buying or smoking at this juncture, and it's happening all over, and it's concerning. Anyway, thank you.
I'll also say that, you know, totally understand what you're saying. People, whether it's legal or not, smoke. This is just the reality of it. Right now, when people are smoking, they don't know what they're smoking because it's not tested in a laboratory. It's not legalized. There's no process for it. What legalization allows for us to do is for the people that choose to smoke, that they actually know what they're smoking, right? They know that it's been tested in a laboratory. So legalization is actually moving towards a healthier, better cannabis for people to ingest if they choose to do so. This is all about choice.
Thank you.
Matt Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Deputy. I have a question regarding the relationship between cigar shops and marijuana use. I'm finding cigar shops are now allowing for marijuana use in addition to, of course, purchasing and smoking a cigar in the facility. Is that permissible?
No. You will have, like, so there's one of those licenses on the 9 licenses that we were addressing which is an on-site consumption license. So if, like, for example, a cigar shop wanted to transition into a cannabis lounge, they would have to apply for a license. They can't just say, hey, I'm a cigar lounge, I can have people smoke cannabis in here. That's not legal. So
And
that
they
is
have
something that would,
both licenses simultaneously?
to like smoke, I am not sure. That's something that I would have to check, but I'm not sure about that.
Thank
I
you.
also know that if I've been in a couple of cigar lounges or two, Matt, seems like you have as well. So if to my knowledge of cigar lounges, a lot of people that smoke cigars, like they're there to smoke a cigar and to have a nice drink. Now, actually, I just answered my own question. You cannot sell alcohol because most cigar lounges that I've been in sell alcohol. If they have a liquor license, you cannot sell liquor and also sell cannabis and have a license to sell cannabis. That is not allowed.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Deputy.
Great question. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised. Any other questions? I do see a concern listed by Arlene in the chat regarding the impact of large-scale housing complexes and residents being able to live without the smell throughout the entire building. I don't know if there's any comments or feedback on that end from OCM.
As far as yeah, go ahead, Pascal.
Can you hear me now? No. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
That's great.
Clear.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you. Okay. In my other life, I am the chair of a 38 building housing complex in Mont Haven. And because there is no enforcement being done, you have in these buildings entire buildings where everybody is smoking marijuana in a smoke-free building. We actually have taken people in the court on smoking regular cigarettes, but that doesn't stop it. And this is worse. And people are complaining about the smell in the buildings. Children are being exposed to this because it's taking place in their house. They can't, as soon as you enter these buildings, that's all you smell. And if we don't have strong enforcement around it, what you're going to have is a community with serious environmental issues in every single housing development that is in Mont Haven. We have 22 NITA developments that's where we getting the complaints about it. And I'm certainly trying to deal with it. And it is impacting where people saying they can't live in these buildings and they're moving. So this is a serious problem in communities like Mont Haven. And I'm just wondering what can be done now. And I understand we're talking about social justice and all of that, but there is going to be a natural, based on our experience living with drug sales and distribution, where people are getting high openly in front of these buildings, all over the streets, all over our commercial corridors, and the police is turning a blind eye to it and refusing to do enforcement of any kind. So we need some relief in Mont Haven, and I'm just wondering, I understand, that we want to legalize it and monetize it, but how can we do it safely so that it's not going to cause these unintended consequences of fueling drug sale and distribution throughout the district and exacerbate the existing conditions that we've been suffering with for decades there? I know it's a lot, but these are the concerns in my district.
So Chair Parks, first I want to just say thank you for all your questions. Even when you didn't have, your mic, you were like, I'm getting my community questions answered. So, as a former community organizer, you go, sis. But as it relates to the
community, and I'm impacted by it as well, so it's coming from the right place.
Yes. As it relates to your question, again, earlier we mentioned where smoking is prohibited, cannabis smoking is prohibited as well. Now, you said that this is happening in NYCHA developments, and want to just remind everybody, and I think that there needs to be some education around this for NYCHA tenants as well. NYCHA are federal. Like that is, if you live in NYCHA, you live in federal housing. This is an illicit drug at the federal level. And so people smoking in NYCHA are jeopardizing their ability to continue to live there. Because should, the federal government decide to do anything, or the people who are managing the building decide to do anything, they're well within their rights because, again, this is an illicit drug at the federal level. And so this is, I think, a very complex kind of issue. We'd like to follow up and have, further discussion so that we can understand what's going on as it relates to that, because certainly we don't want anybody to inadvertently cause themselves to have no housing, right? Because that is a unforeseen circumstance that could happen. So it's not an answer to your question.
Right.
But I do think that we need to do some follow-up. So we'll work with the chair to reach back out and
thank you. I just think that the way it was rolled out, without having the information that we're now getting, and the lack of enforcement is seriously problematic and has caused all of these unintended consequences and has impacted health and environmental concerns in our district. And I think that if we could do something strong around getting this information out, and we'll certainly do that at CB1. And I think people would be a lot more acceptable to the legalization of it if we knew that this wasn't going to fuel drug trafficking in other areas as we're seeing now.
Okay,
which is causing gun violence, gambling, shooting, and everybody just doing what they want to do because there's a lack of enforcement around the issues of marijuana that's fueling other things in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Parks, for
Thank
your
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we need.
I will say, and I received the feedback that you've given us. I will say that prior to us issuing any conditional licenses, prior to the regulations, the first thing that we as an agency did was put out public education material to educate the public about use of cannabis here in the city. You see it on our trains. We also have that information in both English and Spanish, and it's on social media. So we have tried to educate people about the proper use of cannabis, what is and isn't permissible. It may be that not everybody has seen it, not everybody heeds what, the messaging we're providing. And we do have messaging around making sure that you keep your cannabis away from children, you lock it up so you keep it away from children and pets, and to be mindful of where you smoke because of clean air, and also just, contact high is real. So we have done that. So I just really wanted to put that out. The first thing we did.
Secondhand smoke is serious, especially when you have seniors who have asthma. We live in Asthma Alley, and I'm telling you, people are threatening to take people to court over this. And the burden on landlords is unbelievable. So if you've got smoke-free provisions in your lease, and you have the burden of taking so many people to court, that's a high bar. But thank you for coming today, and this has been very helpful. But there are always, like Monhaven has all of these special issues in it that I don't think people are given good consideration to in terms of a community like Monhaven and the unintended consequences of impact of something like this. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chair. And again, thank you so much. Go ahead, Pascal.
I'm sorry. I just also want to remind everybody that I did put the information, the link to our public education page in the chat. So please, scroll through the chat and you'll be able to find it. There's been so many things put in the chat, so. And we will get it to, the Deputy Borough President and for distribution to everybody.
We will definitely distribute and help with that. Absolutely. And also reshare your contact. Again, I just want to thank the State Office of OCM for their continued partnership and prioritizing our borough board meeting. We literally turned this over in a matter. We had a different presenter, and OCM came to us just wanting to present this information as quickly as possible. And so we are just very grateful that they were just available and ready to go and ready to present. Also, we have a commitment from OCM to continue to develop this partnership and connect with both the community boards and city council elected officials as well, to continue this dialogue and conversation and to continue to iron out some of the items that aren't yet clear, but are, being designed as to ensure not just equity, but to your point, Madam Chair, and enforcement and ensuring that, we're living in safe environments and quality of life issues are addressed. So thank you so much for the questions, the comments. We received many of those during our in-person forum on Tuesday, very well received. I think the education piece is the vital piece here, right? I myself, reading the legislation, I'm just like, what is proper branding? What isn't proper branding? Because we're seeing so much of it in our communities that and in a large scale, that it's unclear what the real regulations are because it's coming at us really, really fast. So we really appreciate OCM, their support and their willingness to continue to educate. So thank you so much. Virtual round of applause to Jason and Pascal for the presentation. We really, really appreciate you prioritizing us during the month of June. So thank you. And so they have shared and dropped their contacts in the chat and also linked to the cannabis.ny.gov website. And again, we will share the presentation with you all. And I think one final thing for Pascal and Jason, I think it will be really helpful for us to also get the educational materials that you've shared with the community and the languages that you have available. I know you mentioned English and Spanish, but I think, we have a large immigrant community, non-English speakers that will really, really appreciate. If we're speaking about equity, it's important that we also are inclusive in our language capacity. So if there are information in other languages, it's really important for us to also share and generate that.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. So I look to wrap. If there are any other announcements before I move into our BP portion of announcements. Any announcements from city agencies? Thank you again, Jason, Pascal. I'll give you back your 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all your questions. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I see Mike from DOF.
Yes, I hope you can hear me as
Yes,
we
we
come
can.
through okay. Good morning. I think by now you can probably make my announcement for me. We're once again reminding individuals on the call about the rent freeze program. Here's the announcement from us. The screen and Dree tenants who have not renewed their benefit and are more than 6 months past the end of the most recent approved benefit period, as well as those who have other late or long pending applications, should consider submitting any outstanding documents to the Department of Finance as soon as possible, regardless of whether a notice has been received or not. In other words, if you've signed a new lease and you're in the rent freeze program and you have not renewed or contacted us, you should do so immediately. I'm going to put information in the chat regarding this, the same announcement, and we'll also actually be at the Borough President's office downstairs on Monday. For anyone that wants to come in and receive assistance, we'll be there with the ombudsperson and their staff. And that's on the afternoon. The times and locations will be in the chat along with this information. So share it with your neighborhoods and communities. There's about 2,000 families that may be impacted by this. And with the announcement of rent increases coming for the next set of leases between 5 and 3%, this is a part of affordable housing that we can keep in place just by keeping people who have affordable apartments in at the rent where they are, frozen. And them to persist and comply with these requirements, and that'll be helpful for the chat.
Thank you so much, Mike. I think we lost you towards the end.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Am I back?
Yes. Yep.
I was just saying I'm going to put this information
Thank you
in the chat. And if you heard the announcement about me being at the Borough President's office on Monday afternoon, if anyone needs help, the staff will be there and you can book an appointment. So share it with your communities because, like I say, about 2,000 families in the Bronx may be impacted by this. And it's a simple thing to just re-engage and keep the benefit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mike. Up next, we have Brian from NYSEM.
Hey, thank you, Deputy BP. I have a few announcements for you guys today. So last month, we had officials from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, at our headquarters presenting the Atlantic's hurricane season outlook for this year. They are predicting another above normal Atlantic hurricane season. So we want all New Yorkers to take steps to be prepared by having an emergency plan that includes coastal storms in it. We want everyone to go to nyc.gov/knowyourzone or call 311 and find out their hurricane evacuation zone and closest evacuation center. We want folks that have disability access and functional needs to make sure your emergency plan affects or addresses how your needs may affect your ability to evacuate, affect your ability to use elevators in the building, how to shelter in place or communicate with emergency workers. We want everyone to collaborate and arrange help from friends, family, building staff, or service providers if you need assistance. I will drop the NOAA press release in the chat for everyone, and I'll also shoot an email to the BP's office with all of these blurbs. We want New Yorkers, especially our older adults, to take steps to beat the heat during the summer months. As we all know, it gets very disgustingly hot here. The function of living surrounded by oceans and rivers, my meteorological opinion, for what it's worth. But we want everyone to get tips on how to stay healthy and cool during the summer months, how to conserve water and energy, and how to identify and treat individuals with heat-related illness. You can go to nyc.gov/beattheheat. Keep in mind that during heat events, we activate cooling centers, and the cooling center finder is accessible through our homepage or by calling 311. While prior to the heat emergency, the finder is not active and you will get an error message if you try to look at it. This is because our cooling center finder is updated time of. So say a Bronx Public Library location is one of the cooling centers. Say their air conditioner goes down, they let us know, we pull it off the finder immediately. We don't want folks going out into the heat and exerting themselves to get to a place that is now no longer a cooling center. So we always want to encourage everyone to check the finder before they head out, or call 311 before they head out to make sure their center is open. We're taking requests for Ready New York events. Summer is extremely busy for us, but if you want us at your event tabling or to do a virtual or in-person emergency preparedness presentation, we can do that. We need about 3 weeks notice to properly staff. Let us know what language you would like the presentation in, or what language you would like the materials in, and we can do our best to accommodate that. And as always, sign up for Notify NYC. It is the city's official information source for emergency alerts and information on important city services. nyc.gov/Notify NYC. Call 311 and sign up. Follow Notify on Twitter. We have it on Twitter as well in many different languages. Or download our free mobile application for your Apple and Android device. You can receive notifications in 13 languages as well as American Sign Language. And I just want to shout out Matt Cruz this morning. He let us know about a bridge closure going towards City Island, and we were able to put out a notify on that. So Matt, thank you so much for your partnership on that one. We really appreciate that kind of input.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. Anyone else from our city agencies or community boards, electeds? Any other announcements? Great. So, really quickly from our office, as you all know, on June 14th, the governor extended the emergency order by 30 days. This is on the open meetings law. Therefore, our next borough service cabinet meeting for July will be expected to be in person unless stated otherwise, unless the state of emergency is yet again extended by the governor and it covers the scheduled July borough board. Just be prepared that it might be in person. We do have a presenter in line for July, so just take note of that, and we will, of course, notify you if the emergency order has been extended. Today, in celebration of Caribbean Heritage Month, the Office of the Bronx Borough President will be hosting its annual Caribbean Heritage Celebration at Code Red Restaurant and Lounge from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Come one, come all, bring a +1, a +2, but you must RSVP and you must come in your Sunday's best. The address for this event is at 1320 East Gun Hill Road. And so we expect you to be there. There will be lots of food and dancing. And again, if you'd like to attend, please RSVP via our website, via Eventbrite. I think one of our staffers will drop in the link on the chat. Stacey, if you can do that so that folks can register, that would be great. And finally, on Sunday, in celebration of Pride Month, we, alongside the Manhattan and Queensborough President's Office, will be marching in the Pride Parade. If anyone is interested in joining the march with our office, please feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We do have additional wristbands, and so we welcome you all to march alongside us. Thank you all once again for joining us today on this very important topic. We will make sure to share the presentation and the slides from today with all of you. Again, also share the contacts for both Jason and Pascal. We have, although I think to Madam Chair's point, it's a little late. I think that there's still very much a huge opportunity for us to help influence the programs, education, and enforcement implementations from OCM. And so we welcome you all to provide comments and recommendations to this newly formed office. Again, thank you all very much for attending, and that concludes our joint meeting of the Bronx Borough Service Cabinet and Bronx Borough Board. Thank you all so much. Be safe. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. See you all very soon.